Namaskar. We are commencing the Sutra 2.26. As we have seen that Adarshanam is the cause of Samyogam. Samyogam is the cause of sorrows, and sorrows are avoidable. Obviously, we come to the next of the Chaturvyuhas, which is Hanopayaha. We have so far considered Heyam, Heyahetu, Hanam, and now the last of it is Hanopaya. Hanopaya is obliterating Adarshanam, ending Adarshanam. Adarshanam is avidya, and avidya is neutralized by Viveka Khyati Aviplava. And therefore the sutra is Viveka Khyati Aviplava Hanopayaha. Viveka Khyati, that is Sattva Purusha Anyata Khyati, discriminate discernment. Now this Viveka Khyati has to be Aviplava, that's the predicate used here. That means merely Viveka Khyati is not the means for Kaivalyam, but particular kind of Viveka Khyati which is predicated as Aviplava, that is Hanopaya. Viplava means impediments, obstructions, disturbances, and Aviplava means absence of such things. So, Abadhita, Akhanda, Viveka Khyati is the means of Kaivalyam. So, the means that is Viveka Khyati should be continuous, constant, unwavering, unfading, and consistent. So no fading in, fading out, no thickening and thinning of it. Constant, continuous, uninterrupted flow of Viveka Khyati is the measure or is the means of Kaivalya. So, therefore, Vyasa has enunciation to sutra here. Atha hanasya ka pratyopaya iti uktam. Hanam has been mentioned in the previous sutra 2.25. So, atha hanasya ka pratyopaya. What is the upaya for this hanam, that is Kaivalyam, is being mentioned. So, if this measure is taken, then it is a measure for Hanam, that is Kaivalyam. If the Kaivalyam is actualized, then the Adarshanam is gone, Avidya is gone, completely terminated. If that is gone, conjunction is gone, drashtra-drishya samyogam is gone. If that is gone, dukkham is gone. So this is how we have to understand this sutra. Most importantly, Patanjali has added a predicate here, aviplava, and not just Viveka Khyati. So this is to be taken note of. Merely Viveka Khyati is not the means, but Viveka Khyati of particular caliber, particular qualification, that is aviplava. That is the means for Kaivalyam, Moksham, Nirvanam, Paramapadam. Aviplava. The word is Viplava and there is a negative prefix. A. Viplava means Viplava is by way of Mithya Jnanam. That Adarshanam fading out and Darshanam appearing is the Viplava. So there is a concept called continuous torrential Viveka Khyati, which Patanjali explains later in the 4th chapter called Dharma Megha Samadhi. Torrential downpour of Viveka Khyati, incessant continuous flow of Viveka Khyati, to an extent that Adarshanam is totally flown off from the sight of the Chitta. So torrential rain, just as they clear the sky, the torrential rain of Viveka Khyati, discriminate discernment, clears the atmosphere in Chitta for once and for all. And of course, the Pratiprasava of Prakriti takes place by that. So that is not having Viplava, obstruction, interruption to Viveka Khyati is a Viplava Viveka Khyati. Now, this Viveka Khyati, this wisdom, discriminate discernment, the Vivekam would come by Shastra Jnanam. But Viveka Khyati is Samadhija experience. It is Samadhija wisdom that can be called as Samadhi Prajna. Otherwise, Viveka or Viveka Jnanam would come by Shastra Adhyanam and assimilation of Shastric scriptural purports. So Shruti Smriti mention Prakriti Purusha Bhedam. So when that knowledge comes through Samadhi Prajna, Samadhi experience, because Viveka Jnanam would come by looking into Upanishads, looking into Bhagavad Gita, that Atma is Amara, Atma is Ajara, Atma is Ajanma. So Aja, Ajatvam, Amaratvam, Amrutatvam. So Upanishads tell us, Bhagavad Gita tells us, Moksha Shastra tells us, Adhyatma Shastra tells us. But that is only a knowledge. But when it is experienced in Samadhi Prajna, then that is called Viveka Khyati. So in other words, it is aparokshanubhuti of that reality. Because little orientation to the Shastras, one would get the knowledge about and with respect to Vivekam. But aparokshanubhuti, direct perception of reality, direct experience of reality, and not just knowledge of reality. Now, the process of Viveka Jnanam to Viveka Khyati, see, when first of all there is knowledge about Amaratvam of the Atma, Ajaratvam of the Atma, Ajatvam of the Atma, that Atma is unborn, Atma is immutable, Atma is indestructible. So this is knowledge that we get through the Shastra Avalokanam, Shastra Adhyayanam, Shastrabhyas. So that will give us some knowledge about reality. That's called Shastra Gamanam. So it has to be done. Shastra Gamanam has to be there. Shastra Avalokanam has to be there. We must look through these shastras and get to know about reality. And this is paroksha jnanam of viveka. This is indirect knowledge of sattva purusha anyata khyati or discriminate discernment. And when we have such knowledge, then there is tattva jignasa, then there is tarka prakriya. So we will be applying some knowledge processes on such precepts that we get through the Shastra Avalokanam, Shastra Adhyanam or study of Shastras. We would be having a thought process over it. Tarka, logic, reasoning, etc. And then that knowledge would be reinforced. Without the intellectual process on our knowledge that comes through Shastra Dhyanam, it won't get reinforced. So, the thought process, reasoning process, etc., it gives that firmity to our knowledge with regards to vivekam, sattva purusha anyata jnanam. So, it's a viveka prakriya. It's a knowledge jnana prakriya. In jnana prakriya, we will look into shastras, we will hear about the shastras, there will be shravanam, there will be vachanam, pathanam, pathanam. So all these processes are there, and there will be tarka prakriya. There will be a pondering over, reflecting over, thinking process, intellectual process, analytical process, etc. will take place. And the knowledge will become more firmer and firmer. The knowledge will be also reinforced. But the Viveka sadhana has to culminate into Viveka Sakshatkar. Viveka Sakshatkar means intuitive, mystic experience of that knowledge, which discriminates between self and non-self. So, when it culminates into that, we get Viveka Khyati. The yogi gets Viveka Khyati. When the yogi gets Viveka Khyati, again his knowledge process is structured over it. And then there is often repetition of Viveka Sakshatkar. So Samadhi goes on repeating for a yogi, and the experience of distinction between self and non-self goes on evolving, appearing in the mind, and then a stage would come that it would be constant until the chitta is dismantled and there would be no basis for disappearance of viveka khyati or appearance of avivekam. So the chitta will be dismantled and kaivalya would be occurring. This is how the process is. So it should be noted here that the Shastras have roots in revelations. The Shastras have roots, or Shastras are roots for such intuitive mystic revelations. And yoga ripens the fruit by intuitive realization called samadhi prajna or viveka sakshatkara. So the reality is realized by samadhi process. And herein Once the samadhi experience has come for a yogi, again he has a thought process about viveka jnanam, which is now more reinforced, more stronger because intuitive revelation of it. So again there will be reasoning, there will be logic, there will be thought process, there will be intellectual process. So there is that convection between the theoretical knowledge about the reality and intuitive experience that is had in samadhi. So the intuitive realization and the empirical thought process, there is the convection. This is to be understood here. The intuitive realization confirms the Shastra or Shastric postulations. Whatever the Shastras are saying, they get more confirmed by Samadhi Prajna, by intuitive experience of those realities. And then reasoning also corrected, improved, punctuated. Logical process are also improved, punctuated. And that this is the convection that sets in. The intuitive realization brings cohesion or cohesiveness in reasoning and revelation. Thus, it brings out an inherent coherence of adhyatmic knowledge or spiritual knowledge. So, this process needs to be understood. We will get first theoretical knowledge about realities with regards to discrimination between self and non-self. The Shastras will open out the portal, and then we will have a thought process invested into it. The thought process will sort out any lack of understanding about the discrimination. Then again there will be samadhi prajna, intuitive experience to yogi, that will further purify the empirical knowledge about vivekam between self and non-self. And then there is a convection going on, like water boils with convection. Similarly here the convection takes place, and ultimately there is aviplava viveka khyati. Now this samadhi prajna which comes in knowledge process for only yogi, it doesn't come to you and me and commoners. Our knowledge processes are reformed, no doubt about it, by constant reading, repeated reading of the Shastras, understanding and comprehension of the Shastras. So we develop that maturity in comprehensions and understandings. But we don't have this facility of getting intuitive, mystic experience of it. Whereas the yogi has this, which is incredible aspect in structuring of this ultimate knowledge, final knowledge. The samadhi prajna breaks open anything that is subtle, veiled, and remote. Because otherwise, for our empirical intelligence, there are so many things which are veiled. There are so many things, they are too remote, and therefore they don't get ripened. Knowledge doesn't become ripe. It is because very remote, or there is a concealment, or something is so very subtle. Now this reality, the subject matter of viveka or viveka khyati, is so subtle, and it is also veiled, and it is also very remote. That is called Sukshma Vyavahita Viprakrishta by Patanjali by himself. So this samadhi opens out these binding forces to our knowledge or to yogi's knowledge. Basically, Atma is Atindriya Vishayam. It is extrasensory object. The senses cannot grasp it. As Taittiriya Upanishad says, that Indriyas along with mind come back without attaining it. That's why it is called metaphysical knowledge. So it is such realm of knowledge where senses cannot go have a grasp, cannot reach it, cannot get it. Mind also cannot get it. Mind also comes back without attaining that. That is why it is called metaphysical knowledge. While the intuitive knowledge of samadhi process has free entry in such subtle, veiled, remote objects, extrasensory objects, and transcendent objects. And we would know in knowledge structure that many things are graspable to tarka, logic, to inference, to intellectual process. The senses cannot get the knowledge, but human psyche is endowed with tarka, uhapoha, tarka, then bodhik prakriya, intellectual processes. So many things can be deduced, although you will not be able to get direct perception of the realities, you can infer, and quite valid inferences would be drawn because the human intellectual processes, human logical processes, human reasoning processes. So the faculty functions have greater grasp over subtle, veiled, and remote than what the senses and empirical mind have together. And of course, knowledge process will be enriched by Shastra Adhyanam, Shastra Gamanam, Shastra Shravanam, Shastra Mananam. So these are the processes which have greater access towards these unattainable realms of knowledge. And there's something called as higher faculties of the brain. Higher faculties of the brain also have extraordinary grasp, reach over the things which are subtle, veiled, and remote. So, human thought system is endowed with normal faculty functions of the brain and supernormal higher faculty functions of the brain as well, which are pensivity, reflectivity, meditativity. And then, of course, the yoga further gives assistance in going for intuitive revelations. So the agamya aspects now become gamya. Unattainable realms of knowledge become attainable. And the Arsha Darshanas have a very strong faith and belief in such faculty functions, higher faculty functions, super higher faculty functions called Samadhi Prajna, or what is called as yogic intuition, reasoning, and revelations. So yogi is assisted by yogic intuitions, which is a yogic process of reasoning, and revelations as well. So it all commences with Veda Shastropadesham. So see how the process is. Veda Shastropadesham. It starts from that Upadesham, Atma Jnana Upadesham. And in yoga, we have additional instrument coming in, which is yogic process of intuitive revelation. So it's a great mediator. That's also called as Samadhi Pratibhagnanam. And that contributes the Tarka Prakriya, logical processes, etc. So that they have great bounty. The yogic intuition corrects the reasoning. And we normal human beings don't have this advantage. Our reasoning is not improved or cultured. But for a yogi, this is probable, plausible, possible. And therefore, there is a great bounty in it. And therefore, yogi's mind would become nishanka. Even in the realm of metaphysics, the knowledge would be doubtless. The knowledge would have exalted clarity. So, mysticism explains something called as Samadhi Pragnya Pratibhagnanam, or the pure mind and its faculties, pure mind and its operative processes. These are indeed incredible. So there is a cohesive flow of all these endowments which human psyche has. And therefore the Tarka is also set right, Tarka is also upgraded, experience is also upgraded, mystic experiences are also improved in progressive stages, and then ultimately they all culminate in what is called Aviplavita Viveka Jnanam. And it's all preceded by Tarka, Anubhava, Shastrartha, Shastra Adhyanam, Shastra Gamanam, Shastrartham, etc. So these are all various steps which come in the process. And thus, in subjectivism, we have this process and it ends with solipsism. Subjectivism ends in solipsism, which is not desired by the highest aspirant, because here there is something which we have discussed about Swarupa Pratishtha. I recall a wonderful verse which comes in Devi Bhagavata Puranam in sixth chapter or sixth skandha. Huge passage is available there, one should cite it. There are verses from 15 to 52. But let me just mention here the high point here. Jnanam tu dvividham proktam shabdikam prathamam smrutam anubhavakya dvitiyam tu jnanam tad durlabham rupaha. So, twofold knowledge process is mentioned. One is verbal knowledge, shabdika knowledge, and the second one is anubhavakya. Anubhavakya means it is anubhuti, intuitive mystic experience. So it just starts from hearing about realities, hearing about Atma, hearing about Atma Tattva, hearing about self, and culminates into experience about the self. Now, human beings are usually seen to be logic loving people. Logic is something that is given to human intelligence, and the human beings in intellectual process become Tarka Priya. They start developing affiliation and regards to Tarka and Tarka Prakriya, and therefore the man is often seen to be becoming rationalistic person or rationalistic being. That is called buddhi pramanyavad, intellectual rationalism. Now, this is seen in human psyche, it is not seen in the psyche of others. And this is where human intelligence culminates with intellectual rationalism called buddhi pramanyavada. Tarka pramanyavada, buddhi pramanyavada, and not just indriya pramanyavada. Human being doesn't depend upon validity of the sensory knowledge, but there are processes applied on it, such as bauddhik prakriya, tarkika prakriya, called logical processes, intellectual processes. Anyway, the man tends to become rationalistic, intellectual rational. That's called buddhi pramanyavad. Now, many times, such dogmatic, intellectual, rational person starts deprecating, looking down upon pratibha jnanam, which is intuitive, experiential knowledge, and even about the Shastras. And that's why we have come across a generation of people who started doubting what the Shastras said, what the Vedas said. They would have their logical process applied, and therefore they would feel that all the shastric postulations are just pack of beliefs. So one tends to become skeptic, or one tends to become agnostic. But the pratibha jnana that yoga gives will not give room for such agnosticism and skepticism, because the revelations can be had. Intellectual rational person doesn't get the intuitive experiences of samadhi, but yoga gives this additional faculty. So intuitive knowledge coming in subjectivistic state through a flash of lightning, because samadhi prajna is a flash of lightning. And this is the advantage, and that is why yogaja pratyaksha is also counted. And we have seen during study of epistemology that yogaja pratyaksha was considered. And this is a great endowment to human psyche. Anyway, the rationalization called buddhi pramanyavada and mysticism called rahasyavada have been having fights. They have been engaged in fights. So this is also a point to be considered here, because in this process, these things are coming. Rationalization is coming up. Then intuitive mysticism is coming up. So the rationalist and a mystic have been often seen getting engaged in encounters. So we'll have to take little comparative study here of yogaja pratyaksha or yogaja pratibha jnanam, which is only available for a yogi and not any other one. Rationalization about it, it is said that it infers the truth. It may infer the truth, or it can infer and deduce the truth. But about mysticism, it is said the mysticism intuits the truth at one stroke without going through any logical stages although the derivations are perfectly logical or illogical, beyond logic, but never illogical. The reason dissects reality in the interest of life and only gives as a spatial, partial view of reality. But intuition of mysticism can even invade the infinite and can help one in envisioning or envisionment of the whole truth in one stroke. Therefore, the rationalist, however, may be immaculate, faultless in his reasoning, can culminate in worship of the Lord at the gates of the shrine of the Lord, while the mystic culminates reaching the sanctum sanctorum by reaching the summum bonum there, and therefore his experience is immediate, direct, and not mediate and indirect. And that's how the intuitive mysticism scores over. And this process ultimately culminates into what is called as aviplavita viveka khyati, as pointed by Patanjali. So it needs highest grade of Shastra Jnanam, Parishuddha, Nirmala, Tarka, and Pratibha, faultless Pratibha. And then only the combination of these will result into a yogic experience of reality. So we will be considering this marvelous aspect of the knowledge, epistemology, in the realm of Atma Darshanam, Atma Jnanam. But enough for the time being. We'll continue on this in our next session. Namaskar, all of you.